What do we do with history? From the present, the past always looks like how it is being taught to us. But what if history is more nuanced than that? What if we don't like what we find when we look back? How much do we have to keep with us, and what can we leave behind? These are the questions that are being posited by the absolute sleeper indie hit of 2024, 1000xRESIST. If you know anything about me, you know that I am an indie diehard. I love supporting indies. I love learning about them. I am all about them. I was in the middle of another game when 1000xRESIST dropped, and I planned on putting it on the backlog list until I could get around to it in a little while. But then my community of indie lovers kept talking it up. A GOTY contender? Best story in an indie game maybe ever? My curiosity was piqued. So I looked up some trailers, and one of the first concepts mentioned are original sin and communion.
The sin does not incinerate.
Yeah. That's gonna need to be bumped up the list. I dove in headfirst and could not put the game down until I would roll credits. Was this game trying to be a commentary on the Christian faith? Not really. Surprisingly enough, for a game that uses language like sin and communion, it really had a very different story that it wanted to tell, and it told it exceptionally well. But along the path to tell that story, it wound up touching on one of the most important factors of what Jesus did in the act of communion. So let's talk about it. Welcome to Checkpoint Church, where nerds, geeks, and gamers come together to talk about faith, games, and hecky grace, sisters.
Each sister's function to be...
I am your nerd pastor, Nate. If you like these weekly deep dives, be sure to sub, hit that bell, and find out when our next one drops. As always, we'll be using the NRSV UE. That's our preferred translation. Is what's going to be up on the screen. However, if you have a translation that you prefer, feel free to use that one as well. Our liturgist for today is our level 2 member, Sugar Haiku. Take it away.
Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have come not to abolish, but to fulfill. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth pass away, not one letter, not one stroke of a letter will pass from the law until all is accomplished. Therefore, whoever breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever does them and teaches them will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I tell you, unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven.
What is 1000xRESIST? Now, I'm gonna do my best to spoil as little as possible with this game, but to be honest, that's gonna be pretty tough. In an effort to do so with as much like avoiding as possible, I wanna set up the story and then take you to the very last choice of the game, leaving all of the meat in the middle for you to explore. 1000xRESIST is an indie game from Sunset Visitor, a team of artists and performers from Canada.
So many of us are trying to explore how to tell more ambitious stories, more involving and intimate stories in this medium.
It's a narrative adventure game, which is often begrudgingly referred to as a walking sim, but that happens to be one of my favorite types of games. The game itself is surprisingly detailed for an indie from a small team. The music is very, very good. And the game is fully voice acted, which is downright unheard of for a project of this size.
How are we here? Is this punishment? For what you did, for what I did. There is a now, and you are in it.
Doesn't take long to really pick up on the fact that the writing of this game is where it truly excels. We start the game as Watcher, angry,
Red to blue, mother.
with a shard of glass in our hands.
I gave up everything to walk beside you.
We approach the Allmother from behind as she is praying and proceed to skewer her with it. She lays in a pool of blood, her blood on our hands. How did we get here? We blink. We start the game as Watcher. Who is saying goodbye to their friend Fixer, who is mysteriously going off to the other side to be with the Allmother.
You will be with the Allmother.
Not unlike 99% of fantasy fiction, yeah, go ahead and get ready for that, because this game is gonna throw about 100 proper nouns at you in the span of an hour and not gonna tell you what any of them mean for quite some time.
Watcher, Principal, Secretary, Allmother.
Long story short, the world ends by a deadly disease. Wait, when did this game start production again? Yeah, that makes sense. Anywho, only one person is immune to this world-ending disease, and she's the Allmother.
The Allmother.
Everyone, including yourself, is stuck serving a specific role as a masked clone of the Allmother, serving to the best of your ability until eventually hoping to be called to see her and do something, I guess. No one's ever come back, so maybe they just go to the surface. Maybe they become like one with the All-Mother. I don't know. Regardless, in this weird society of clones, there is a hierarchy. Below the All-Mother seems to be the principal, and then there are all these other sisters who are sort of on the same level, but also not. Like principal is clearly in charge, or at least in like a director position. And then we have all the other sisters. We have Healer, who oversees the birthing chambers of the clones. We have Knower, who is this librarian and keeper of history, whose job it is obviously to know things. We have Fixer, who is the techie mechanic of the group. We have Bang Bang Fire, who is the head of the army. And then we have Watcher.
How do I know it's really you?
Who has a special role called Communion.
But be warned, communions can be disorienting.
By the use of this strange floating orb-like thing that is not cast as Peter Dinklage, Watcher is able to travel into the memories of the All-Mother and live out her past to better understand the connection between the world and the sisters and the All-Mother.
Others will see you as the All-Mother.
Obviously, considering that Watcher stabs the All-Mother in the opening scene that happens in media res, things don't go well, but I'll leave that story for you to discover. Let's communion our way over to the closing choice of the game. This is going to be tricky. I've put in the actual script garbled noise. They do it in the game. Just kind of like, blah, 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 blah. Okay, here we go. This will be fine. You are being given the opportunity to choose who gets to live and who gets to die in a dystopian reality. Every character has their good. Every character has their bad. Every character has done unspeakable things, from terrorism to torture to downright murder. Some are worse than others, and some are your friends. But here you are. The will only spare those that you leave the light on for. If you turn off the traffic light above someone's head, then the will cease them from ever having existed. As you go from group to group, the will list off the traits of the characters, what baggage they have with them, what they symbolize to the All-Mother, the future that they will have for the sisters. And then they ask, will you carry that with you? Being the curious person I am, and I do love Undertale after all, I had to experiment with all the possibilities. What if I do no harm here? What if I undo everyone, thus allowing for the ultimate lack of harm by a lack of existence? What if I only end those who have done harm to me? What if I only end those who have done harm for any reason other than justice? Vice versa. There are several options with fascinating endings in this one. Many of them lean heavily into the downright unchristian truth the game presents, that there are some who are truly unforgivable. Are they? Is it truly out of my capacity to forgive? Do I have any choice at all? What is choice anyway? This is all kept within an aphorism that the game offers up regularly. Sometimes you can't fit in the backpack. With that, let's take a look at our scripture for this one. Our passage for today comes from the words of Jesus according to the Gospel of Matthew. In particular, it's a sort of precursor to the mic drop that Jesus is about to offer in the sermon known as the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus is about to say a whole lot of things that the people of the Jewish faith had heard before, just slightly different this time. Jesus wants to be clear. These things are going to be challenging, and they're going to maybe feel like they're undoing the law and the prophets, that is to say the history that's led up to this point, the wisdom, the writing, the vision, the people that have made the faith what it is today. It's going to feel like everything is being undone, but Jesus assures them this is not the goal. Jesus' goal is not to abolish or to tear down the law and the prophets. Instead, he's here to fulfill them, to make them complete. These things are the fulfillment. And I tell you, says Jesus, that the one who breaks or encourages others to break the least of these commandments will be the least in heaven, and vice versa. Then, to really set the tone for what's about to happen, Jesus starts his diss tract with "For I tell you that unless you are more righteous than the ones who proclaim themselves righteous in your leadership, you won't even enter the kingdom of heaven." Transitive property. Your law teachers who are listening right now don't even meet the bottom threshold of what I'm about to tell you the law really is. Jesus will then go on to give this sermon, and he will continue to teach, preach, and build up his disciples. He will offer parables, feed people, eat with sinners and tax collectors, and do so much work in fulfilling the law and the prophets, until his final act with his disciples before his crucifixion, where he will sit down with his betrayer and his disciples, and he will eat with them and pass the cup with them. He will look those gathered in their faces and offer them a cup of wine and say, "Drink from this, all of you. This is my blood of the new covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. As often as you gather in my name, drink this in remembrance of me." And then Christ will be led away, beaten, bruised, battered, and finally crucified on a cross, atoning and fulfilling the new covenant by his blood. And we call this act of remembering Eucharist, the Lord's Supper, or communion. Now, I'm not entirely sure what the plan was for Sunset Visitor by using this language. They use heavy Christian language really throughout the game. A lot of grace, a lot of communion, a lot of original sin. Heck, even calling each other sister kind of feels a little Christianese.
A sister who was incinerated for her sins.
But the story that they wound up telling accidentally lines up with the actual communion reality of Jesus. In the act of Jesus giving himself as atonement, a new covenant has been formed, not abolished or tearing down the old one, but instead fulfilling it, completing it, bringing it to its proper end. There's only one character that we can't turn off the light for at the end of 1000 times resist, and it's us. The only thing we can't ultimately do is offer ourselves up as the atoner for the sin that has been done. Perhaps this is the game dev acknowledging there is no silver bullet for this world they've built. There is no Christ in this universe. There is no perfect sacrifice. Some must be sacrificed and they won't be able to be saved. They can't fit in the backpack. But this is the beauty of the gospel. Jesus says, I am the backpack. I am enough. I am the fulfillment of this. I am the sacrifice that is all sufficient. I am the forgiveness of sins. My blood is poured out, and it is perfecting love. 1000 times resist is a beautiful testament to the human limitations of a faux Christ figure that cannot be enough. But it also is an excellent illustration to show that where feet may fail, Christ stands strong and tall and fulfills that which we are unable to complete. With all of this in mind, what does this actually mean for us today? When the truth of history is revealed, when you finally play 1000 times resist, and I really think you should, there is an ugliness in the past that came before us. As a leader of the church, I acknowledge this as much as anyone else ought to. The church is complicit in great evil. We always have been. We are not perfected, but perfecting. But it all starts from the truth of the gospel, that there is a great atoner. A new covenant has been forged in the sacrifice of Christ, that we all might be welcomed into the grace of God. Not just some, not just most, but all are equal at the level footing of the cross. Regardless of your theory of atonement, the welcoming of Christ was made complete in this. The role of the watcher is not reserved for just one person. There isn't only room for one at the communion table, but it is instead imbued directly into our ethos as a church that we are to remember, recall, celebrate the taking of the body and the pouring of the blood. We are to collectively remember the past and use it to fuel our present circumstances. In closing, I want to challenge you to reflect on the phrase, "You can't always fit in the backpack." This phrase has a much deeper meaning within the game itself, but there is something to it for us as people of faith working through our lives too. What doesn't fit in the backpack of a new life, of a life redeemed? What did Jesus take out of our baggage in his sacrifice? What does that mean for us now? It's an interesting thought exercise, and especially interesting keeping games like this in mind, where there is no real choice but to leave someone behind. Someone can't fit, but Jesus says, yes, they can. And Jesus instead throws out death and sin and hell from the backpack to make room for radical love and radical grace. As we sort through questions like these, know that this community is always here to work through these tough questions with you. Whether you're a watcher, a knower, or just another sister, you're always welcome here at Checkpoint Church. Folks, thanks so much for watching this one. I so appreciate you taking time out of your busy days to join us on these nerdy deep dives. If you want more of what Checkpoint Church has to offer, we are streaming over on Twitch every other Sunday, every Tuesday and Friday. We'd love to get to know you there. And we are active 24/7 building community over on our digital church, which is on Discord. We have a Discord server. I'll link both of those down below. We would love to get to know you in those spaces. Hey, if you believe in our mission to serve nerds, geeks, and gamers, then I want to encourage you to use our Give to Checkpoint Church link down in the description. Or if you consider Checkpoint Church to be your church, I want to encourage you to consider setting up a tithe, a recurring tithe that will come out there as well. Maybe you don't consider Checkpoint to be your church, but you want to take these nerdy sermons and apply them to your small group, your youth group, your young adult group, whatever. We've been creating curriculum just for that purpose over on JesusLovesNerds.com. Be sure to click that link down below as well to go and get access to those Bible study curriculums. Hey, if you watched this far, odds are you liked this one. Be sure to click that thumbs up button. If you want more videos to watch just like this one, you can go and watch Unicorn Overlord, which is another one of our videos on a game from this year that deals a little bit with some radical examples of forgiveness, whereas kind of like this one says you can't, that game says you really, really can. Or you go watch Life is Strange. I don't know what it is about a walking sim, but they all seem to do very similar things, and this one in particular presents a very similar dilemma of choice between like Bay versus Bay. You can go watch that video. Or Trigun Stampede. It has an interesting look at pacifism for its own sake and the impossible choices that we have to make to do good things. All great videos. Let me know if you check any of them out. Hey, quick question for you. We're about halfway through 2024. What are your current Game of the Year contenders for 2024? Let me know down in the comments down below. If you want to know my answer, look for Nerd Pastor Nate down there. With that, we're going to end this one as we always do with our 3 things that we believe to be true about every single one of you out there. Whether you believe in God, don't believe in God, go to church, don't go to church, hate God or hate church, we still believe these 3 things to be true about every single one of you out there. Number 1, that God loves you, like really, really loves you. Number 2, we love you, we want community with you. That's what we're doing here. Number 3, that you, yes, you matter. You are a person of sacred worth. The world's a better place. Why? Because you are in it. Folks, with that, until the next time that I see ya. Bye-bye! What a conundrum we've gotten ourselves into here. I don't know what to do. Oh my goodness. I don't understand how I keep getting stumped. I understand what to do until I try to do it, and then it doesn't work. I feel like I'm getting it, and then as soon as I feel like I'm getting it, I lose it. Oh my goodness, I can't be making a habit of this. This game is gonna be the death of me. This game, dude.